Hey everybody, my name's Tom. Welcome to the channel. Here we like to talk about all things tech and keep it 100% honest and transparent. About 3 months ago, I released a video unboxing and giving you my first impressions of this Epson ET-2720 EcoTank printer. I wanted to make this follow-up video answering the questions that you guys asked on my previous video, as well as showcasing a full color print and the quality that this printer can deliver. But before we get into that, I want to talk about some of the pros and cons that I discussed in that last video, just for you new folks. One of the pros of this printer is that it obviously doesn't take any more cartridges. In my last video, I walk you through the entire process of setting this up, including putting in the bottles that are full of ink. Now, I've used this printer for 3 months now, and the only one that has even gotten remotely low is black. And that's because I do a lot of printing for shipping labels on eBay, as well as other text documents for scripts and stupid YouTube stuff. And when I say that's the only one that's gotten low, I've only used about 1/4 of the tank. So let's just jump into it. The first thing we're gonna do and test is the quality of a full sheet color print. One of those negative things that I mentioned in my previous video is that the paper doesn't have a tray. It loads in from the back. That's the only place it can go. My concern was that if you have lingering paper for a long period of time, you would get dust, and it can then ruin the quality of your print as well as the internals of your printer. But I haven't had any issues in 3 months, so let me do a little bit of digging and we'll find a picture and we'll print it. Another one of those things that I wasn't super happy about when I first jumped into this printer was this super tiny display size. This display is literally 1 inch by 1 inch, which it's so tiny.
That's what she said.
The navigation to type in characters for a Wi-Fi password is also fairly difficult, but once you do it once, and hopefully you don't have to do it again, it does become easier, and the navigation is pretty seamless. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna print is a color testing board. It has a gamut of colors all the way from white to deep black, gray, yellow, blue, green, pink, red, blue. You guys are gonna see, so once this comes out, I'll just take a quick peek with my own eyeballs. We'll then scan it in and I'll show you guys a digital copy of quality. So one of the questions that I came across in my old video from you guys is, can this printer scan wirelessly? And the answer for me, and I've gone through it 100 times, is no. It doesn't seem that there's a connection, a wireless connection to start scanning, so there's only USB. Something like that is not a make or break for me. It doesn't really matter. It's a little bit of a headache at the point where you do have to scan something in and bring your laptop a little bit closer to where your print station is. So let's take a look at this together. Okay, so as you can see, it did really well on white to deep black. There is a little bit of like head overlap on some of these smaller black lines. You can see it a little bit more faint with some of the colors. Hopefully you guys are able to see now a little bit more of what I meant by there's overlapping print heads. The quality of light to dark is really good, and I mean, that's what I use this for. I use this for document printing and it's flawless. Colors are pretty vibrant as well. Knowing that there's only 4 colors, I swear I won't say cayenne. Black, yellow, magenta, and cyan. It's pretty incredible that you can get such an array of vibrant colors. On to the next test. Stupid. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is print a real life color photo. A picture, camera photo. Something with detail. So while I do identify as a photographer, none of my photos are nearly as compelling as somebody that I look up to, that person being Peter McKinnon. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna print a couple of Peter's photos, the highest qualities that I could find on the internet, and we'll take a look at those with my naked eye on the print, and I'll also scan those in for you guys to kind of analyze and critique. Before we start printing this, there was a question about how loud this printer is. So in the middle of this print test, you guys are gonna see me grab a DV reader. I'm gonna tell you what the volume is, me talking from about, here. And then I'm gonna tell you how loud the printer is. It's not loud, it's a printer, but it was a question, so I'm here to answer it. The decibels of my voice right now are about 75 dB. and it looks like we peaked at about 71 for the printer. So it's really not that loud of a printer, especially if you're in an office setting. It's no more than somebody talking to you from 2.5 feet away. Hope that answers your question. This is beautiful. So we went with a darker photo right off the bat. Ground level, shooting the road, tons of detail in the original digital photo. I'll throw that up right here so you guys can take a peek at what that actually looks like. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more condensed that we're dealing with YouTube compression and a smaller image size. But let's scan it in, and I'll show you what I'm seeing. So while this is scanning, I'll answer another question. This is one that was riddled throughout my comments section, and although I have not done this to my printer, there are places that you can find more information on it. The question that was asked was, can the ET-2720 do sublimation printing? If you're not familiar with what sublimation is, it's a special ink type that prints and you're able to transfer it. It's transferable ink, so you're able to make designs on t-shirts, book bag, whatever. You can put your printed designs on things. Short answer, yes, the ET-2720 is able to do sublimation printing, and you can buy bulk sublimation ink on Amazon. All you have to do is search for it and you'll easily find it. The issue with the ET-2720 is filling the tanks with sublimation ink. I'll try to find some resources that in my research helped dissect and better explain the sublimation process, or to transfer this printer to a sublimation printer. It does seem to be a little bit of a headache as you're going to be filling the sublimation ink reverse through the print head. If it's something you want to tackle, it is possible. Yes, you can sublimation print with this, but it's not an easy task. Hopefully that answers that question. Right off the bat, I can see a couple more little print headlines that run vertical this time, which makes sense. The print heads that we saw on the color palette also ran vertical, so they run vertical on here too. So while we're waiting for everything else to scan, I'm going to print the rest of the photos. This photo that's coming out right now is 1200 by 570. I am seeing a lot more in the lighter section, some of the overlapping heads, which makes me think I'm going to actually run some diagnostic tests and maintenance on this. The first thing I'm going to run is a nozzle test. So this is basically just telling me what I've used the printer for, my serial number, my firmware. So this is now telling me since the first time printing on 4/4/20, I've printed a total of 196 pages, which is pretty incredible. So that's a nice little diagnostic. We're gonna skip ahead though. This process actually took a while, and I documented that whole thing in the first video. So again, I'll be right back. Okay, so I just reset all the heads and went through the process of choosing the best number. So a couple of them were off or have changed since I used the printer, so we should be good now. I am now printing one last photo to be able to scan in and show you guys. It's a lighter color photo, higher def. The quality is pretty good, but there's still some really terrible lines that go throughout, and it's got nothing to do with our ink levels. It's definitely a head alignment issue. But let's get some of these scanned in and give you guys a better look. So needless to say, I've been having an issue trying to get this to scan after changing the DPI settings on my computer. It says it's no longer communicating with the scanner. So I've used multiple USBs and I still can't figure out what the problem is. So rather than wasting memory card space and time, I'm going to shut this off and then come back to hopefully a workable situation. Okay, so I do believe that we are good to go scanning again. The issue was that my computer no longer had the drivers necessary to scan with the ET-2720. So after going back on their website, refining them, everything seems to be working perfectly now. I will say that I learned something today. I didn't know that this printer actually does have a quiet mode. So the question that was, does this printer have a quiet mode? Yes, mine's off, and it's even quieter, I'm assuming, than what I previously told you. I don't want to turn it on, but yes, it's got one, so the more you know. Okay, so as you guys can see, after scanning this image right here, it's apparent that there are lines in the middle of the road. The transitions of lights to darks is pretty good, but you can also see in the dark areas that those lines are pretty prominent. So as far as a quality test, we'll do it with the other photos, but I can't say that I'm happy or excited or that this is even a photo printer, but you guys asked for it, so here we are. I'll scan in this photo next. I think this is a perfect example of the quality distortion. Let's just call it quality distortion that this printer does have. So in this case, I think it's important to see the side-by-side of the digital versus the scan. One of the things you'll know right off the bat is that the color looks very washed. Not to mention the details in the rocks and in Peter's face all seem to blend in. Now, that's definitely a DPI issue. Not so much with the scan, because I'm looking at it with my own eyeballs and it's just not good. I think it's safe to say this is not an HD photo printer, which we all knew, but I think it's good to kind of get that out there. Just in case you were thinking about buying this to do prints for actual photos, probably not the best bet. Now, it's also very, very small, the details in his face and the rocks and mountains and everything else. So let's just do one more of this photo right here. You can see he's a little bit more detailed in his face. You're still coming across lines. I think what you really need to do is see the side-by-side. Now, before we take a look at the side-by-side of this scan in detail, I want to answer one more of the questions that you guys left for me on my previous video. This question was also asked a lot, and the question was, can this printer print on cardstock? Because I don't have cardstock to test, I did a little bit more research. This is how I answered you guys. I said I do believe that this printer can take up to 20-pound paper test, but cardstock is actually 100-pound. I think 110-pound, yes. So, no, but I have heard of people printing on a slightly thicker test paper, but you're not going to get a cardstock print out of this printer. Or so the frequently asked questions and stats of this printer say. You're more than welcome to try it out yourself. If you do, let me know in the comments below, and I'll be sure to highlight that. Cool. Let's take a look at this. Okay, so the first thing you'll see in the side-by-side comparison of this photo digital versus the scanned is obviously the drastic color and contrast difference. The blues are a lot lighter in the print version, and it just doesn't look as good. Now, the details in Peter's face are pretty quality, and they don't look terrible, but I have a really hard time getting past the print head alignment lines. It seems to show up a lot more on lighter printed pictures. So take that with a grain of salt. But needless to say, this printer does exactly what I want it to do. I think for the price, which is still currently $199 on multiple places, I'll throw some links in the description below for you guys to check out. It's a great printer, and the whole purpose of having a tank printer versus a cartridge printer was to hopefully save money on my basic print needs. So that's exactly what it's doing. I use this printer for work, not so much for printing and selling something as beautiful as this. But that's going to be it. I hope that this deep dive into the quality check of the ET-2720 Epson EcoTank printer helps you decide if this printer's for you or if you need something a little bit better. A little bit better. Thank you again for watching all the way to the end. My name is Tom. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. And if you haven't seen that first video of the unboxing and first impressions, click right there. Hope to see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Peace.